In 1956, I made my first movie. And,
yes, look, I think we've all been there where we're stuck for words, wondering what to say. And if you're one of those people that really struggles knowing what to say in between songs on a stage or any type of on-stage situation, I hope this video will be helpful for you. Let's get right into it. Okay, so first things first, let's just articulate the fact that speaking in between songs is an art form and it takes time to develop. And so if you're struggling in your early stages, well, that's natural and nothing's wrong. Let's just figure out what are some good little tips to help you in making the process a swift one in climbing up the comfortability ladder.
Climb every mountain.
So in order to help me help you today, I've enlisted the help of some great mates of mine that have got a lot of experience performing themselves. We've got Dave Gleeson from the Screaming Jets and the Angels. We've got Jordan Lennon from the Hindley Street Country Club, as well as Rohan Watts, who does many things in the music industry, including being an MC with a kids' Humphrey B. Bear show.
Put on some pants.
Okay, so my first tip is actually asking a question of, do you need to speak in between a song? It depends on the situation, of course. There's a lot of artists that just let the music do the talking, but there are definitely situations where you should say something because, you know, there's that awkward silence.
I always feel like 3 seconds of dead air in my mind is like 50 minutes. So I just have a habit of talking and getting the crowd going.
Sometimes the silence is good for the audience to just take in the music or have an opportunity after an onslaught of noise to be able to chat to the people that they're with in between, have a bit of a break.
Sometimes you don't need to say anything. Silence is okay.
And so when it's good silence, when it's awkward silence is on a case-by-case basis. And one really good way of trying to figure out when is a good time to talk and what to say is by doing some research on what your favorite artists do.
I think with anything you work at it, you know, and certainly with me, like I watch and admire a lot of performers, and then obviously, you know, your DVDs and your bits and pieces that you see on YouTube of, you know, your big stars. Like a big influence for me was like Robbie Williams was a huge one, and I love the way he interacts with the crowd. And obviously, you know, your greats like Freddie Mercury just have the absolute gift.
It's interesting because everybody does it differently.
The people who I watched Doc Neeson of the Angels a lot, and he was so enigmatic. He would say there's a full blood moon tonight, which was kind of a really theatrical way to go about stuff. He didn't kind of say, hey, are you rocking, how you going? But then on the other hand, I love David Lee Roth, who does that stuff, who kind of engages with the audience in a kind of more personal way.
Can you hear me out there?
So my third tip here is making whatever you say unique to you. Don't feel like that if you're watching one of your favorite artists and you think, oh, I'm going to copy that exactly, that's a good idea. Take the inspiration from it, but make it your delivery. So for instance, if they're going really outlandish and you're not really so outlandish yourself, well, then do your version of outlandish. If they're being really quite subdued and you're really quite happy-go-lucky or whatever, well, then do your version of subdued. Don't try and mimic exactly everything because it just won't be authentic to you.
Well, I tried to be more like Doc when I first started and try to say things, and then I just felt a bit foolish because I wasn't giving that same theatrical kind of performance. Yeah, it's just one of those things that I kind of, as I grew in confidence as a performer, it kind of came more naturally to me. But yeah, it all comes down to, I guess, not forcing it.
Now, my next tip here is having a bunch of go-tos. You know, there's nothing worse with like being up on stage and then all of a sudden you're just like, oh, I don't know what to say. You know, having a bunch of go-tos will really help you in those moments where you're like, I'm struggling. Like go to okay, what are some things that I could say?
How's the crowd doing tonight? Is it the first time we've been at this venue? Have we been here before? Good to be back. So great to be here for the first time. Thank the bar staff, thank the sound guy, introduce the band members, make a joke of what we're wearing or what someone else is wearing or whatever else. Introduce the song, introduce that last song that we just played. Through my head, I just go through all of my checkpoints. Oh, I've said that already, whatever else. Sometimes it depends on the show, but sometimes if it's like a really, really rehearsed show and it's like a theatre show or something like that, you know exactly what you're saying anyway.
If there's a particular message the event is trying to get out, whether it's make sure you buy your raffle tickets, or if it's we're raising money for this cause, or it's like we've got a band with an album coming out, or there's T-shirts at the door, there's often some messaging to get there.
Sometimes stuff will just pop into my head and I'll say it. Other times I'll have seen something in the news and want to rag on a politician or something like that, or just a public figure. Sometimes I'll talk about the song we're going into, but often I'll tell a story that's not about the song we're going into. It'll just have some tenuous link.
It's like a fake confidence, and that's always such a good thing, to have this fake confidence that you can just keep talking and talk like I'm doing now. Like this fake confidence of talking and rambling on. Obviously not going on too much, but I'm actually just contradicting myself because I'll keep talking. So I'll stop talking.
Now, depending on how intimidated you are with this concept of just rattling off a bunch of things that are just, general go-tos, if you feel like that, it might be hard to remember them all, well, might I suggest just jot them down like small little dot points just as an indicator, and then just have them written down on a cheat sheet or just on your set list, which is a really great segue to go into our next tip, our fifth one, which is if you feel the need to, well, then plan what you're going to say. Sometimes people would feel the opposite to this because they feel like that it would be a little bit stale or a little bit too contrived. But if you're really struggling for anything to say, well, then planning something is definitely going to be a step in your right direction to give you the confidence of knowing, okay, well, at least I've got this to mention.
I really did not expect this, so I didn't write anything. However, my wife did and handed me something.
And also, if you feel the need as well, practice it. Like physically practice standing either in front of a mirror or at your rehearsal where you're practicing talking in between your songs. It'll feel really weird when it's not an actual gig, but it'll make it so much easier when it is your gig.
All right, let's try a few more questions, all right? If you were Miss America and the U.S. was on the brink of a nuclear war, and the only way the conflict could be averted was if you agreed to sleep with the enemy's leader, what would you do?
Kramer, are these questions really that important?
Yes, they're important. If you stumble, if you hesitate, you can kiss the crown goodbye.
Now, my next tip a little bit contradicts what I just said about the planning. Remember what I said about it could be a little bit contrived or whatever if you plan it. And so my next tip is to be present in the moment. So what that would mean is that if you've thought of something or you've noticed something that's happened, but it goes a little bit against whatever the plan was, well, in a lot of cases, screw the plan, go with the thing that's the inspiration or the thing that you've just noticed.
All right, this next song goes out to the guy who keeps yelling from the balcony. It's called We Hate You, Please Die.
Sweet. Love this one.
An audience loves spontaneity and feeling like that they're really there with you in the moment.
It was the heat of the moment.
And each gig will be that little bit different energy. So you've just got to become good at reading the energy in the room. What we do as entertainers, as performers, is important. It's very important. But we're not heart surgeons. Like, nobody's going to die if I say the wrong thing. So it's just knowing that you're working without a net, but the fall isn't that far.
Hello, St. Louis!
That's Springfield, Stephen.
Yeah, right.
Now, my seventh tip, lucky number 7, is make sure that if you're asking the crowd to give you a response, that you're giving them a really easy answer. Like it's yes or no, or woo, or boo. So for instance, if you ask them something like, what did you have for dinner today? It's like, you'll get all of these like random responses and, it's confusing. A better question might be like, how great's the chef in this joint? Everybody make some noise for the chef. Woo! It's an easier, no-brainer, way for them to respond.
I guarantee.
I don't like saying this, because if you're playing to a room full of adults, you don't want to treat them like kindergartners. But in that sense, it's a lot easier to get a bigger, more communal response from something that's just so simple. So if you're asking for a response, make sure it's an easy answer.
Are you ready to rock? Yeah! I said, are you ready to rock?
Now, this could potentially be the most important tip here. It's avoiding the boring stuff. Don't give any attention to some technical difficulties. What you need to do is you need to keep the momentum going of taking their minds away from whatever their troubles are in their life. You're there to entertain them. It doesn't necessarily mean it needs to be happy entertainment, but it needs to be entertainment that's got no focus on any logistical worries that you may have as a performer.
It seems some silly twit did not get a big enough oxygen pump, but that's supposed to be a devil.
If you're being a little bit cheeky, that's like self-deprecating sort of thing. So you're bringing attention to it, but it's more of a comedy.
In 1950s, I made... It's cutting out, man. Okay, no, there. Oh, well, hey. In 1956...
I was once filling in at the local casino with this act, and there were some technical difficulties. I can't remember what they were, but the way that the lead vocalist decided to deal with that situation is say, I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, but we're having some real technical difficulties up here. And I just remember feeling like, oh God, that's just the worst way of dealing with a problem. A much better way of doing it is thinking to yourself, what's something that I could do to take the attention away from whatever the technical difficulties are?
This isn't happening. Everyone look away, please. Nothing to see here.
All right, a couple more tips. The second to last one I feel is very important, that you vary what you say from song to song. If you've got an hour set and you're saying thank you after each song, and you're then introducing the next song title and the artist, and then you're going into the next song. After a while, that sort of wears pretty thin. Think, what's another way that I could introduce a song? Maybe you could not speak in between each song. Maybe one of the songs could lead straight into another one. That could help vary it. But when you're speaking, what's a way that you could vary it? For instance, one of the songs you could just talk a little bit about your connection to the song, the first time that you heard it, what it makes you feel, what it potentially could remind you of in your life, a story. And I wouldn't do that every song. I would think of something else then to talk about in another break between a song. So have a think, what are different ways that you can vary?
So for me, it's about that relationship building with between the artist and the audience.
This morning, we were driving down Route 401.
That's only 4 miles from my house.
Now, my last tip, I reckon, is the most important. You got to experiment. You got to just try some stuff.
Well, it is a night for experimenting.
The amount of times I've been on stage with Dave Gleeson and afterwards, he'll say, he's like, oh, I didn't know if that thing was going to work, but whatever, I'll just try it. This is somebody that's been doing on-stage banter for over 30 years, and he's still wanting to try stuff. He's keeping himself entertained as well as the audience. And sadly, once in a blue moon, it may not work the way that he wanted it to, but he's willing to put himself in that position. And so it's really quite an inspiration for me to know that, I've been doing this for quite a while myself. And so you think some things that'll work, but you should never stop trying. Keep experimenting, and you never know, you might be able to land on something that nobody else has, and then it'll be completely unique to you.
Now listen, Crafty, I've got some very bad news about your face.
I'm seeing a new act here.
All right, so there you have it. There were some tips on stage banter. If it was helpful, let me know in the comments below. And I'd also like to thank my wonderful helpers, Rowan, Jordan, and Dave. You guys are legends. Love yous. Also, with the name Crafty Music Tips, yes, that does imply that there's a bunch of other music tips related videos that can help you out here on this YouTube channel. So go check them out. And if that's still not enough, I have one little parting gift to offer you. It's called 5 Steps to Fast Improvement. Basically, all it is, it's an ebook that will give you the tools to be able to figure out, well, how is it that I'm not improving at the rate that I want to, and how can I improve at the rate that I want to? Because let's face it, we've all had those feelings of meandering where we're just chasing our tail, not really getting where we want to. So I lay it out in 5 steps in this ebook for you to read, where you just get really clear on what is it that you need to do in order to be able to make the improvements that you want with your music. So if that sounds helpful, I'll leave a link below. All right, so this has been yet another Crafty Music Tips video. I hope it's been helpful for you. I'll sign off by saying that if you have a musical decision to make in your life, make the healthy one. Cheers.